let's just touch real quick. Like, obviously Tua got hurt. He's coming back after the bye week. There's really not much to talk about there. The Bills handled them. Something that I said during the Bills, like when we previewed them, I was like, and I didn't stick with it for some reason. I was like, Sean McDermott has earned the right in this league to, no matter who is on his defense, that he's going to put out a really good defense. He's obviously good at that. And we're watching it through the first 2 weeks of the season where the Cardinals obviously did their thing against them, but when it mattered, they made plays. And then they absolutely dismantled the Dolphins. And through 2 weeks, they made Waddle and Hill look really average, and they made Marvin Harrison Jr. look really average as well. And then you obviously see what those guys can do given the right matchup. But I think the Bills defense is scary.
Yeah. They forced 3 interceptions against Tua this
Tua
week.
Was off.
It was bad. It was rough, but I guess that's just what the Buffalo Bills defense does to you. And I mean, going into it, Josh Allen was like 7-0 in primetime against the Bills, or some ridiculous stat like that. But they didn't really have to do too much. I mean, James Cook went absolutely bonkers. He was one of my top performers this week. 11 carries, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then a receiving touchdown for 17 yards. He went crazy, but I mean, obviously even before Tua got hurt, I didn't think the Dolphins were going to win this game by any means. I mean, the Bills came out there and just dominated on both sides of the football. And then when Tua went down, it obviously didn't make things any better for the Dolphins.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but Buffalo's run game and defense look amazing. I think obviously their passing game has some work, but if you're running the ball like the way they are, it doesn't really matter. Next game that I want to talk about just real quick, and then we can move on to something a little more interesting. Pump the brakes on New Orleans. I know that over the first 2 weeks that they look really good. I also think that like this notion now that goes around the league where it's like, well, last year they were 30th in pre-snap motion. Now they're 5th. Like, I don't know what change. If that's the case, every team in the NFL should just be doing like pre-snap motion and play action. I think it matters to some point, but I don't think it's just going to make every team the best offense in the fucking NFL. So I'm a little tired of seeing those stats. It's a little overblown at this point, and it is overblown when like everybody starts using like a really like average surface level stat. Like, we don't sit around and like really spit too many stats out. We just kind of talk, but like that's like a surface level stat that's just like really weird. But real quick, like they beat week 1 a really bad Panthers team. They already benched Bryce Young. They're a disaster. We were wrong about them. Yeah. And then last year, Dallas lost to the Cardinals.
I was going to bring that up.
Like against Josh Dobbs, like dropped a weird game to them in week 2 of the season. Okay, they went out and laid an egg against New Orleans. I don't feel any differently about Dallas. I think that it's more pump the brakes on New Orleans. I think that they're going to be overblown the next few weeks, and people are going to really start to realize like, oh wait, Derek Carr's still their quarterback. They really don't have that much talent on offense, and their defense is a little bit older. Even Marshawn Lattimore hasn't played in like 2 years. So pump the brakes on New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give them credit. They did look good.
No doubt.
Yesterday, but the pre-snap motion thing, I completely agree with you. Like, I think it does matter to a point, and it does help. But if you're telling me that the Saints went out there and didn't run and they ran half the amount of pre-snap motion, I don't think that it really would have made that much of a difference in this game. It was just one of those weird games where everything was working on offense for New Orleans. And like you mentioned earlier, the Cowboys dropped an early game against the Cardinals last year. It's not like something ridiculous for that to happen early in the season. I think in week 2, there was a stat going around that's like 60% of underdogs were winning in week 2. And I mean, obviously that fits this notion. Do I think the Saints are going to be this good moving forward? No, but I mean, 2-0, and that was a good win against Dallas. So,
all right, now let's get to a game that really matters. Tampa Bay at Detroit. Tampa Bay was laying getting 7.5 points against Detroit. My takeaway from this game is I thought Jared Goff played all of his games in a dome. So like, why is he throwing bad picks? Like that's all everybody talked about.
The dome. You can't throw an interception in a dome.
That's what everybody talked about all preseason. Is like, oh well, they play all their games in a dome, so they'll be okay.
Good news is, if you play a good team in a dome, you still have to show up and play good football.
And my concern with Jared Goff remains the same. With the Lions remains the same, and that's Jared Goff. Jared Goff might have had 307 passing yards, but he made some really bad decisions in that game, and it cost them that game. So yeah, I think that this is an interesting loss for Detroit. And on the other side of things, Baker Mayfield might be really good.
He looked pretty good. Any game though that you have Jared Goff throwing the football 55 times, I don't feel great about that if I'm a Detroit Lions fan.
No.
Jared Goff is an above average game manager, and it's not like this game was ever in a scenario where the Lions were down by more than 2 touchdowns and had to throw the football all over the place. Credit to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers though. Baker Mayfield looked gritty as hell. That touchdown that he had, people were calling him Baker Sanders, not me, but people. But yeah, Bucks 2-0. Can't apologize for that. They're gritty as hell. And Chris Godwin looked good too on top of it all.
Yeah, for sure. Next game, Indianapolis at Green Bay, the biggest rat line of the week. I thought the Colts would win. They didn't. Whatever. I don't have much to say about this game. It was shitty. Green Bay ran the ball all down Indianapolis's throat. No Diddy. I think Indianapolis just doesn't have a good defense, and I think probably for the rest of the year we should take note of that.
Yeah, if you have a decent running back and you're playing the Colts, more than likely just take their over on rushing yards. That's back-to-back weeks of them giving up like 150 yards to a running back. On the offensive side of the ball, Anthony, this is the growing pains that you will have to deal with Anthony Richardson. He can realistically make every throw, but there's also going to be the times where he predetermines a throw, and we saw that with at least one of those interceptions this weekend. He had Michael Pittman wide open on the outside on like a 5-yard in, and didn't even look at him, just immediately threw like the hitch to whoever the inside slot guy was, and there was 2 guys standing right in front of him. But that's what you're going to get when you draft a guy that has only played 18 games of football since high school. It's going to be frustrating because these last 2 weeks were games that the Colts could have both won. They were in both of these games, but you can't turn the football over 3 times and expect to win. So
completely agree.
Colts fans, hold on. I'm pro Colts, and I love Anthony Richardson. I think he's going to be good, but he needs to go through these growing pains in order to figure it out. He's going to have to learn the hard way.
We said that. Yeah. I just thought they'd beat the Packers with Malik Willis, but they didn't.
I didn't. I stayed away from this game solely because I felt as if it was a rat line, and I'm glad I did.
Next, New York at Tennessee.
Will Levis, another week, another Will Levis meme.
Yeah, he sucks. But on the other side of things, like New York, it's the same shit. Like they're not until I need to see something out of them before I feel better about them, essentially. Like they're just not the team that was hyped up to be the last 2 years. Their defense looks pedestrian. And I don't know. Rodgers just doesn't look good. He might have one throw a game where you're like, oh, there's Rodgers.
Yeah.
But like other than that, like I don't see it. Garrett Wilson so far has been extremely disappointing. Like, let's just call it as it is. I thought that he would I thought he would have like back-to-back 100-yard games and like be like snapping. He's been extremely disappointing. And I just don't really like what I've seen out of the Jets so far through 2 weeks.
Yeah, he should be getting more than 6 targets a game. He only had 4 catches for 57 yards. I like Brees Hall. I think he's one of the best running backs in the NFL, but it's probably not great when he out targets Garrett Wilson. And maybe that's just like Rodgers doesn't have it anymore. Because there's no reason for him to be checking it down and swinging it out to Brees Hall as often as it was, as often as he was. I was not impressed with either side of the football from this Jets team. The Titans hung around, and I don't think the Titans are that good by any means, but this felt like a game that the Jets should have won by more than a touchdown.
Bro, I'm not talking about the Titans until they figure out whatever's going on with like Levis doing stupid shit.
Dude, that throw that he had to the throw that he had to Calvin Ridley was insane. I don't know how that wasn't intercepted.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not talking about them. I just said that. Next, San Fran at Minnesota. Minnesota pulls the upset. This is what I wanted the Jets to do to San Fran last week, and they didn't. I think the first thing that we can say is like, shout out Sam Darnold. Good for you. You're balling. I think it might be a little bit of fool's gold, and like I'm not going to buy too much hype on it. What I can buy hype on is Brian Flores as a defensive coordinator. I think he's really good, and I think that he's going to give teams fits all season. But the Sam Darnold train, I'm not buying it.
So one of my like absolute overreactions for the week is that the Vikings can win this division.
That's crazy.
Well, it has to be. I have to overreact to something, and that's going to be my overreaction for the week. I said coming into this game that Justin Jefferson and this wide receiving core were a mismatch against the 49ers. And I know Justin Jefferson got hurt, and then Jordan Addison obviously didn't even end up playing. But Justin Jefferson, I mean, had 4 catches, 133 yards, and a touchdown. Obvious mismatch there. I think he would have had an even better game if he stayed in. But like I said, I thought that he was going to be an absolute problem for this Niners secondary, and I was right up until a certain extent. But I mean, I thought this was a great game by the defense, and I think you're right with Brian Flores. I think he put together an absolutely phenomenal game plan, and we saw how it played out.
All right, let's fly through some of these. Seattle, New England. Seattle wins an OT, close game. New England scrappy. Who would have thought? Good for them. New York, Washington. I have not. That was maybe the worst game on the entire slate. I don't want to talk about it unless if you do.
I just want to point out that the Commanders won with 7 field goals, didn't score a touchdown.
And for everybody sitting here saying like that, we're sitting here saying that I was dead tripping for saying Daboll was on the hot seat. Daboll not bringing an extra kicker when he knew his kicker had a groin injury, and then them losing this game because of the groin problem is exact formula for getting fired. This team doesn't look good. So like, don't be shocked if Daboll's is one of the first coaches fired this year. Everybody said I was crazy when I said it.
Did they lose because they didn't bring a kicker, or did they lose because they suck as a football
They
team?
lost because they did not have a place kicker. They could have won this game if they had a place kicker.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I might have watched 4 plays from this game.
Yeah,
so.
If they would have won this game if they had somebody to kick the ball for them.
They missed every extra point.
Yes, and they couldn't kick field goals. They couldn't kick field goals.
Damn, poor Giants.
And then when he was asked about it, he just gave some smug ass answer. It's like I said, it's the recipe for getting fired. We talked already too much about it. Los Angeles Rams at Carolina. I don't have much to say about this game other than I do have a scenario where Bryce Young's career gets saved. I know that right now people are down on Bryce Young. I mean, if you've been watching him over the last 2 years, he's lost it. He's digressed. Bad footwork. Doesn't have anything rolling at all. He can't even complete anything. He looks really bad. He looks absolutely defeated. He's small. He's an outlier statistically. Something that me and you talk about a lot when we go over the draft is guys who are just like statistical outliers from like a physical perspective, like height, weight, speed, whatever that might be. There's never been somebody his size that have worked out in the NFL. So maybe that should have been the first red flag. But I do have a proposal for you to hear of how Bryce Young's career could potentially get saved.
Go ahead.
I think it's clear after this season, Matt Stafford will be retiring from the game of football. I think that there's also a good chance that McVay could also retire and do TV like we heard about. But he's benched. The relationship is done. What if the Rams go trade for the former number 1 overall pick, gets into the LA Rams system, and Sean McVay can Sean McVay save Bryce Young's career? I don't know if Bryce Young will ever be like a top 10 quarterback in the league, but I feel like if he's around the right coaching staff, he's got to be a serviceable quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing that he's truly this bad, because what we've seen has been somebody that just doesn't look like he has any clue as to what's going on. Zero confidence out there on the football field. And normally it doesn't work out for most guys after you leave your first team. But if there was ever a situation or a head coach that I would feel comfortable giving a shot to revive somebody's career, it's probably Sean McVay. He's at the very top. He's at the top 3 spots on my list. I think if you're the Panthers too, it looks significantly worse because of all of the things that you gave up to trade to that position. You've gotten rid of countless young talent on this team. At this point, you pretty much just have to. If you're gonna bench him, you should at least try to figure out, is there somebody else out there that is willing to take a chance on this guy, and what can we get for him? Because it's not going to get any better for Bryce Young. It already looks horrible for you. If you can somehow trade him away for like a 3rd or 4th round draft pick, then absolutely take it. And
I think that's what was done. Like, I think that's the conversation that was had. Like, Canales, this coaching staff, they don't have any ties to Bryce Young. They came in, saw what they have with him through 2 weeks, had the conversation to be like, we're benching this dude. He's not our guy. We don't want him. I think that he's out of Carolina no matter what.
I saw on Twitter, Ben Solak tweeted out about how he thinks that the Dolphins should try to trade for him. I don't hate that, but my question is, what happens if Tua comes back and ends up being like staying healthy? You just have another backup quarterback, and then you're just running the risk of, okay, well, say Tua does get hurt, then we have this guy that's not as thick as Tua, but it's probably similar height, similar arm talent, probably. I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting.
It's interesting, but I'm more looking for somebody as of right now. There's no like feeling that Tua is not going to be their solution long term, at least in their building. And Tua, like, he's not retiring. That's their guy. They just signed a contract with him. I'm looking for him to probably go somewhere where they don't have a quarterback, probably.
Yeah. I'd have to read the article. I browsed through it quickly, but I mean, that makes more sense. For him to go to a place like that where he can just go in there and have a strong offensive-minded head coach and potentially work through some of the things that he's dealing with right now.
So, hey, maybe I'm crazy, but that's the only way I think that he can get saved. Go to the best head coach in the NFL. All right.
Yeah. I did want to say one thing about the Chargers, just real quick. Another game where they had significantly more run plays than pass plays. And I also want to say that I'm happy for J.K. Dobbins that he's like finally healthy and finally having like a good start to the season. Poor guy just could not stay healthy, and I always thought he was going to be pretty decent, but again, so many injuries, and he's
I'm
played well
not.
these first 2 games. So good
I
for
would
him.
never. I would never be happy for another grown man, but that's just me.
Good point. Good point.
Next game, Cleveland at Jacksonville. Yeah, we were wrong about Jacksonville. They need to fire Doug Peterson. He's dog shit. He doesn't have a clue what's going on. I don't know what's happened. He doesn't have a clue. Trevor Lawrence just looks so bad because in these situations, even where they do score or have a big play, it gets called back. I watched every snap of that game. It was hurtful. It was bad. On the flip side of things, I do think Jacksonville has a elite defense.
Yeah, we were texting back and forth during this game, and I think the Jacksonville Jaguars have to be like the most infuriating team in the NFL. Like, they've got talent on both sides of the ball. I like their weapons. Their defense is solid, and their offense just goes out there and will play like 3 plays really well, and then they'll shoot themselves in the foot, and they're back to square one. It's just unbelievable. They can't put together like cohesive drives, and there always seems to be some stupid bonehead mistake that happens, or they just get sacked at the wrong time, and they just can't piece it all together on the offensive side of the ball, and it's very frustrating to watch.
On the flip side of things, where the hell is Christian Kirk? Well, he's just not
3 targets for 1 reception and -1 yard.
What's happened? I just don't understand. This offense is a shell of themselves. I don't know what's going on. Get somebody, Bobby Slowick, please come to Jacksonville and save Trevor Lawrence. Please, Bobby Slowick, Ben Johnston, after this season, please come to Jacksonville and save Trevor Lawrence. Next, Vegas at Baltimore. Baltimore just is a weird team because they're so dominant, and it feels like they get ahead in these games. It was the same problem that they had last year. They get ahead in these games, and it's almost like they get ahead too early and then just like give up leads. That's the same shit that was happened last year.
Yeah, they were up by like 10 points at one point, and they just couldn't put the game away. And for the Raiders to come out here and score 13 in the fourth quarter and steal this game, I mean, if you're a Raiders fan, you got to feel phenomenal about winning that football game. If you're a Ravens fan, I would feel a little nervous. I think there's issues with this offensive line, and I don't think it's time to like completely push the panic button or abandon anything yet, but they got to get that figured out, because this is not looking like a team thus far that is the best in the AFC, how they normally look in the regular season. One of the best in the AFC.
Completely. Whatever. I think Baltimore will figure it out. I'm not worried about it. We talked about Los Angeles Cardinals, Pittsburgh, Denver.
Can the Steelers stop? Can they stop?
Not much to say. 13-6, brutal game. Bo Nix isn't ready. I don't know why they made him start the season. I don't think that was a good idea, personally. But yeah, I don't have much to say.
It's just going to be the same thing, the same script for the Steelers every game. It's keep it within 1 score and squeak out a win. And it's been that for 2 games so far. The Steelers are first in their division.
No comment. Next game, Bengals at Kansas City. Kansas City, no matter what, always gets the penalty, always has things swing their way to do the right thing. Jamar Chase has an absolute meltdown over a tackle, pushes them back.
So
they lose the game pretty much because of that. And then at the end, they get the pass interference call, which, yeah, whatever. Ultimately, it's the right call, but every single time, somehow, they always get the flag to give them the win. Kansas City is so unlikable. Travis Kelce is a shell of himself. I think Rashee Rice is really good. I think something that I talked about before the season started is I don't understand why everybody was gassing up the Kansas City offense so much. Harrison Butker literally carries this team. Like, I get it. Like, Patrick Mahomes is really good. Rashee Rice had a big play. Harrison Butker carries this team offensively. He carries them in points.
Yeah, he was 2 for 2 on field goals, 2 for 2 on extra points. But like, I'm looking at this Kansas City, and they lost Pacheco for a handful of weeks too, and he's
Yeah,
been pretty reliable for them.
for sure.
Um, Outside of Rashee Rice, I mean, we're pretty much looking at the same exact Chiefs team from last year. It's Rashee Rice and an old Travis Kelce, and then fill in the gap wide receivers. Um, but going back to your point about them getting a call in real time, I didn't think that was PI. And I was like, oh, okay, like, cool, they didn't call it. And then at the very, very end, right before they're about to like pan back, you see a flag fly in from that field judge right along the sideline. And I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Like, that's so bang bang in real time. And for him to take that long to make a decision and it ultimately being the one that, oh, yeah, of course it helps the Chiefs, it's just so frustrating. Um, a game where Mahomes has 2 interceptions and they still somehow win the football game. I mean, looking back at the replay, it was PI, but in real time, that's so close and so bang bang that like it's very tough to call. And if it wasn't the Chiefs, I don't think anybody else gets that call.
No, it's crazy. They, like I said, they get every call, and then you have to listen to them in the locker room afterwards. Oh, like if you give Mahomes this time, like if you give 1-5 time, like blah blah. Man, like it's great that they're doing really well, but like also at the same time, it's just like you have to get the ball to be kicked at like a 58-yard field goal and you have a shot. Um,
Yeah.
like so I'm a little tired of like the play, oh, like whatever 1-5 does, blah blah, like okay, whatever. I still think this team's offense just isn't very good. I stand by that. Cincinnati played really well. I just think that the only time they play really well is against Kansas City. I'm still worried about this team. I don't care.
Yeah.
Um,
I am too. Mike Gesicki was their best receiver this week.
yeah, that's an issue. Another thing I'm worried about, what the fuck is Jamar Chase's problem? Like he has turned into like a lot of receivers this season, this offseason and going into the season have become so goddamn unlikable. Like Jamar Chase just like is the definition of like a diva wide receiver. He's annoying. He was fighting with everybody. He was like screaming at Joe Burrow after he pushed him, came off on the sideline, was screaming and crying a little bit more. You cost your team the game, plain and simple. The defense, if we look back on it, the defense shouldn't even have had to be in a situation like that to put
Correct.
their backs up against the wall. It should have been over. So yeah, I'm not happy with Jamar Chase. I don't know if the fans are, but I don't know. He's become extremely unlikable lately.
Yeah, that was a really tough scene. And I don't think I've ever really seen Joe Burrow like get that animated in a situation, but to see him yell at Jamar Chase like he did and like basically try to hold him back from screaming at the ref, like you could tell that the moment just like got too big for Jamar Chase and he just lost his cool. Um, I thought Joe, I thought Joe Burrow looked better today than he did last week, but I do think there is still room for concern. But the Chiefs should have won this football game. I mean, the Bengals should have won this football game. That penalty from Jamar Chase was just such a bonehead play. Like, it took them out of field goal range, put them behind the sticks, and um, ultimately we saw how this one ended up. So just stupid mistakes in a football game that you should have won. And now you're staring at 0-2, and it's tough to come back from that.
That's exactly what I said when we did our preseason like talk on them. I said they start every season like 0-2, 1-3. Shocker, they just started the season 0-2. So yeah, I'm still not feeling great about Cincinnati, even though they played up to par with Kansas City, but that just seems to be the only game they like to wake up for.
Yeah, luckily for them, they have the Commanders and the Panthers for their next 2 games, so they could be right back to 2-2, which is good for them. But I mean, I don't know. There's definitely got to be concern in Cincinnati.
I'm with you. Last game, and then we can end it. Chicago at Houston. There was a lot of talk about how bad Caleb Williams played. Nico Collins did have a good game. Chicago had CJ Stroud boxed. Whether people like to talk about it or not, he's another one of the golden boys who don't get that same sort of heat that everybody else gets. He had time back there in the pocket. He just, quite frankly, just got boxed by the secondary. They were okay with allowing Nico Collins to really eat against them, and you look back on it, it's probably the right call. And again, like, their kicker Fairbairn absolutely bailed them out of this football game. It's going to be if honestly, like, a lot of these quarterbacks just need to get to the ball to like the 50-yard line, and they have a real shot at scoring points. And that's really the difference right now. If you look at teams across the league, is do they have a kicker that can nail a 60-yard field goal?
Bro, these kickers are fucking insane. Like, Fairbairn had 13 of the Texans' 19 points. And that's unbelievable. The Chicago Bears defense played very, very well. And the fact that they even had an opportunity at the end of this game to go down there and at least have a shot at scoring and making a play is impressive. I think I said this at the very beginning of the season. I think the Chicago Bears defense has a chance to be a top 5 defense in the NFL. And so far they've looked phenomenal. As far
Tyler Gordon should have had a pick 6, bro.
He should have. But as far as this Texans offense goes, I think the Bears played it honestly as perfectly as you could. I think there's too many guys on this Houston team that are just dogs, and one of them is going to have a good to above average game. It's just a matter of not letting 3 of them do that. So we saw Nico Collins go out there and have a good game, but they shut down Joe Mixon, they shut down Diggs, they shut down Tank Dell, and quite frankly, the Chicago Bears were right in this game the whole time. On the offensive side of the ball, they've got some issues with that offensive line that need to be addressed.
Good thing
that offensive line is bad. It's really bad. You read off a stat to me today. It was Caleb Williams had pressure on 36 of his 37 dropbacks or something.
Yeah.
It's tough to be successful as a quarterback in the NFL when you don't have any time to throw the football.
Another thing that I need to say is Keenan Allen's not healthy. Not a good look. Real shit. DeAndre Swift sucks. I said this in the offseason. You said he was a good football player. He is not a good running back. He does not know how to run straight. Every single time he gets the ball, he makes an unnecessary jump cut. Every time. He never runs forward. He always is like looking to make a play. I just don't think he looks good. I think that you see very quickly them turn to either Roshan Johnson or Khalil Herbert or whoever that is. He is just not a good football player.
Yeah, I think some of it is on the offensive line, but majority of it is on him, and I will admit that. He was a product probably of an extremely talented Eagles offensive line. I will wear that. But yeah, it doesn't make things any easier on your rookie quarterback when you can't move the football on the ground. The Texans, I mean, they were just pinning their ears back and there would be times where they would send 5 guys and the Bears would have 6 and Caleb Williams would get sacked. So they got to figure that out. Otherwise, Caleb Williams is going to be in the same position as all the other Bears quarterbacks, and I'm going to be sad.
I think he'll be okay. I'm not panicked on it in any way, shape, or form. One thing that I am panicked on is if Rome Odunze's knees actually messed up, don't play. He doesn't look good. He gets no separation. He wasn't open at all last night.
No, he wasn't. He didn't step up at all.
I don't like what I see out of. They threw one ball to him in the end zone, which should have been a touchdown. You're a number 9 overall pick for a reason. You have a clean shot at the ball, make a play.
That like lob slant play. That was a weird throw.
He didn't.
He could have caught it, but it was a weird play.
I expect him to make that catch personally. That's just me. But
Yeah, hit his hands.
As of right now, like Adunze, if Adunze's knee is that messed up, sit out because I just don't like what I've been seeing out of him so far.
I will say that I kind of like DeAndre Carter in this offense. He just seems like a quick little speed guy that I was like, oh, nice. This was kind of fun to watch him get the football a couple times. Like, obviously, he didn't do anything groundbreaking, but I was like, oh, nice. Like, that's not a bad, like, not the worst option that you could have as your fourth wide receiver or even third if somebody's down. But like, I agree with you. I think Rome should have caught that football as well. It hit his hands, and that's a play that you expect a first round number 9 overall pick wide receiver to make. So
I take him. That's pretty much all I have. I actually had like a crazy weekend betting. I bet the Cardinals like literally 100 times. I bet them. I put a bunch of money on their money line, and then a plus 108. Then like I put their spread at like 3.5, 6.5. Then it was like 10.5. Then I got it at like 15.5 or like 14.5. Then I got it at 19.5, and just literally just kept betting it. I put in some random Eagles or random parlay for the Cardinals game that I sent to you. I just like evened out my balance. And Trey McBride
like 2 to win like 55 or something.
Yeah, and then Trey McBride pounces on a loose ball for a touchdown, which was like one of the craziest ways I've ever hit a parlay in my life. And then I did an unders parlay of under Will Levis yards, under Rodgers yards, under Bryce Young yards, and under under Justin Herbert yards. And that all hit flawlessly, and Will Levis's under hit by hit the under by a point by half of a yard. So it was 192.5. He finished with 192 on the dot. So I just like
that's such a good win.
Yeah, I just had like a great weekend betting. I had like Pittsburgh in the under parlayed. I was just locked in. I'm ready to do it tonight again, and like I'm just vibing right now.
Yeah, I can't say I had the same success this weekend. I bet on Bo Nix under in yards, passing yards, and under in attempts, and somehow they both went over. So that was not fun. I was a Cooper Kupp touchdown away from completing a 3-leg touchdown score parlay. I was a Jonathan Taylor touchdown away from completing another 4-leg touchdown score parlay. I was a Jags away from winning another parlay. I mean, I'm keeping the Jags out on my do not bet list until further notice. They're just bad. So.
I also hit I hit Tony Pollard over rushing yards at 50. And then I bet Derrick Henry to finish with his over in yards. That hit. I just had like a good weekend of gambling. Some positive hits.
A team that is on my absolute bet list is the Chargers right now. I'm all in on the Chargers.
Nice.
They're looking good.
So I literally said that. And you yelled at me.
I bet them to come in second place in the division.
But you yelled at me when I said that I think the Chargers are a playoff team.
I agree.
It's on video. No, it is on video. Don't do this. I'll pull it up and post it again.
I said, okay, I'm not sure I'm ready to say they're a playoff team this year, but I think they win 8 or 9 games is what I said.
Okay. You yelled at me.
I did not yell.
But hey, they're 2-0. Quentin Johnston's back, and that's all there is to it.
Dude, if they can go get Quentin Johnston to even play at like a 3rd round NFL wide receiver level, they might be all right.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Those were probably his first 2 touchdowns in the NFL, right?
No, he remember the parlay that I cashed last year to win like $500 when he scored a touchdown when he was down. They were down like 60 to the Raiders.
Oh, yes, I do actually. Okay.
I put like it was like over Eason's stick yards, over Aiden O'Connell yards, Quentin Johnston to score a touchdown, and Michael Mayer to score a touchdown. It was like $5 to win like $580.
Hell yeah. Okay, well that's a great first touchdown for the young lad.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing under yards and for Kirk Cousins, under yards, what's his name? Jalen Hurts, 100 rushing yards for Saquon, 100 rushing yards for Bijan, and both of them to score a touchdown.
I've seen you posting ones like that in the Discord. It's pretty much just like whenever you get two good running backs up against each other, both of them to score, and then both quarterbacks under pass yards,
Yeah,
or
why
like
not?
over 200 or something.
Yeah, I do think that this Eagles this this Atlanta secondary against the Eagles will be like low key, like a sneaky matchup.
I am worried about that. I will admit. They've got two really good safeties, so that's definitely going to be an issue. But I like the Eagles' chances running the football, so I like the Saquon touchdown.
Definitely. All right, brother. That's all I got.
All right.
White clouds blowing out when we max 4-5, not the size, but it kick up high.